Hello, party people. Once again, I am a tiny bit late. My days, hello Hadley, are a little bit wild, my friends. Do you see? Okay, I'm gonna show you my calendar for a second. I have all this stuff I'm trying to do. I had like 6 meetings today, so thank you for bearing with me since I posted like last night that I wouldn't be able to do this until 10:30 this morning. For right now, I have, hey Abby, hey Vince, for right now I have a meeting on Wednesdays at 9, from 9 to 10, so until future notice, I may be broadcasting Wednesdays at 10:30 on a regular basis, or I might need to change my my reading time in general. I don't know. Things are just evolving. So we will see. I may change to 10:30 for a long-term thing anyway, but anyway, here we are. Today we have a chapter that I am looking forward to. It's a little bit mature, I guess is how I would say it. So we'll stop and chat about that, and if you have questions, let me know. And it's not like a huge deal, but yeah, I used to read it in 7th grade, and that was a little bit better. You guys aren't quite that old, although you're almost 7th graders at this point. But yeah, so our character for today is Maricela. Hey, Miss Giroux. Maricela. And her little picture here is, I believe they're either radishes or beets. I don't remember. They look like radishes, maybe. We're gonna find out. Alright, so Maricela. If you're Mexican, the Cubans and Puerto Ricans hate you because they think you snuck in illegally and they didn't. Which they would have if they could have walked. If you're a teenager, the whole world hates you. If you're a pregnant teenager, people think you should be burned at the stake. I'm a Mexican, pregnant 16-year-old, so shoot me and get it over with. So Maricela definitely has this impression that the whole world hates her. Easy to have if you're her, probably. I think that there are a lot of ways that teenagers especially can feel like hated by adults. I don't know if you have felt that yet. I don't know if you're still cute enough so that people don't lump you in with teenagers. I don't know. Maybe you can speak to that. Hello, mother. I wouldn't actually care if you did. Shoot me, she means. In a way, I'm already dead. I used to be really, really hot. Because of the baby, I'm fat as a wrestler. I dropped out. I've been to exactly 0 parties, and I've been asked out exactly 0 times, including by the scum who got me pregnant. My parents were mad. They wanted me to graduate. But abortion or adoption? Forget it. Then, they got sort of excited about it. They both love little babies. Not me. They started praying for it every night, while I was begging my body to miscarry. So you can see that this chapter, Maricela is dealing with topics that are a little bit more mature, just in terms of her being 16, being pregnant, which is pretty unusual. Hello. And then she says her parents got mad at her for this. This is kind of heavy stuff, especially for this book, which tends to be like pretty lighthearted. It's about a garden. So if you have any questions about that, throw them down, and I will throw them down in the little comment box, and I will address them when I see them, when I pause for a second. And this chapter will show how Maricela is able to kind of turn her attitude a little tiny bit, and feel happier. This chapter kind of gets at her being angry at the start and kind of how she comes around a little bit. There's nothing wrong with being angry, except that it can make your life a little bit less enjoyable, and of course life is all about what you make it, right? So if you can enjoy your life more, then that's something you should always try to work on, because being angry makes things a little bit less fun, in my experience. 3 of us from my high school got into this program for pregnant teens. They give you rides to the doctor and help with getting your GED at home. Your GED is a graduate equivalency degree? I don't know. My mom will pop in and tell me. Thanks, Mom. Which is basically, if you can't get your diploma in high school, it's a way that you can essentially finish high school and get a diploma without being in high school. Great. Except that Penny, the woman that we see, saw the community garden and got the program its own spot to give us practice taking care of something and to let us witness the miracle of life. The author puts this in quotation marks to show that Maricela thinks it's ridiculous that Penny is doing this, and to try to keep us from eating our babies alive or dropping them into dumpsters. She's a pretty cynical character. It was already the middle of summer, so she had us plant radishes, since they grow fast. All three of us hate radishes. As soon as the little green leaves came up, a gopher or something wiped them out. So much for the miracle of life. I didn't tell Penny I was hoping the same thing happened to my baby. She's so cheerful I never could. She's not puking or getting big as a blimp. No wonder she's always smiling. After the radishes came squash, then Swiss chard, which nobody knew how to eat. I was in my 7th month. I hated the bending. We all complained, but Penny just smiled. The rest of us called working there the chain gang. I hated the feeling of dirt under my nails. One afternoon, Yolanda broke 2 of her fancy, painted, expensive nails and cursed out loud for 10 minutes. Penny couldn't shut her up. Then another woman came over and gave us this long lecture about the word decorum. What character have we heard about, not heard from necessarily, that might give a lecture on how to behave properly? There's a character that we heard from who gives an adult a lecture. I was gonna tell you. Well, never mind. It's in Virgil's chapter. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was my old 3rd grade teacher, Miss Fleck. I prayed she wouldn't recognize me, but naturally she did, and asked me all the usual questions. I should have had the answers printed up on a card to hand out. The next week, when some man threw a can out his window, which landed about a foot from my head, Miss Fleck figured out what apartment he was in, walked up, and yelled at him like he was a kid. She treated the whole world like her classroom. Different people came to our part of the garden for different reasons. The Puerto Rican kid had these pumpkin plants that kept getting into ours, which gave him an excuse to walk right past me and talk to Dolores, who was 15 and pretty and still didn't look pregnant. I couldn't wait for her to get huge. Sometimes this black guy ran through our garden. He couldn't take the time to go around. He grew lettuce, or tried to. Most of it was dead. He'd drive up in a cab, slam on the brakes like the Pope just stepped in front of him, run through our squash, cut a bunch of lettuce, and run back with it in a bucket of water. Then he'd peel out, leaving lots of rubber. Then there were the people who came by to give us different things. Vegetables that they'd grown that they thought we should eat, which we always gave away later. Advice on growing our stupid Swiss chard, advice on giving birth and raising kids, which I tuned out as soon as they started. One day in August, it was just me and Penny. This black woman, Leona, who had a garden and talked to us, came over and gave me some flowers she had grown. They were yellow. She called them goldenrod and said if I made them into a tea, it would help me with the delivery. She knew I didn't want to be pregnant. I could talk to her about it. That day, it was almost too humid to talk. The windows around the garden were open, and you could hear 10 different TVs and radios. A storm was coming. The thunder was getting closer. And then it hit. Bam! Then all the TVs and radios went off. So did the lights. It was a power failure. So up until this point in the chapter, Maricela has been pretty angry. She's been, grumpy about the people who run through the garden. She's been grumpy about the girls who get talked to by the boys because they don't look pregnant. She's been grumpy about how Penny has tried to help them, how other people have tried to help them. And now she's met Leona and she says, I can talk to Leona about this. She understands that I don't want my baby and she doesn't hate me for it. And so Leona is really a turning point for Maricela, which is awesome. You guys know I love Leona, so. It was quiet in the garden without all the noise. You guys know when the power goes out and all of a sudden everything is quiet and maybe you go outside and it's extra quiet and your ears are kind of ringing maybe with the quietness? That's this. I looked around. An old man near us was slowly picking cucumbers like nothing had happened. Whole city shuts down, but the garden just keeps going, said Leona. She talked on, how plants don't run on electricity or clock time, how none of nature did, how nature ran on sunlight and rain and the seasons, and how I was part of that system. The words sort of put me in a daze. My body was part of nature. I was related to bears, to dinosaurs, to plants, to things that were 1,000,000 years old. It hit me that this system was much older and stronger than the other. So she's talking about the system of nature versus the system of man-made things. We've only grown that system of man-made things in the last 20 years since this book came out. She said how it wasn't some disgrace to be part of it. She said it was an honor. I stared at the squash plants. It was a world in there. It seemed like I could actually see the leaves and flowers growing and changing. I was in that weird daze. And for just that minute, I stopped wishing my baby would die. So, maybe she doesn't change completely that's the end of the chapter. Maybe she doesn't change completely by the end of the chapter, but she does, have a little bit of a changing moment here because of the garden. No questions about this chapter at all? No? That's deep. Yes, it is deep. So what is it that kind of finally gets to Maricela? It's not like Leona, but what is it about what Leona says that helps Maricela finally realize, maybe for one single second, that things will be okay? The whole city shuts down, but the garden just keeps on going, Leona said. You think about that. She talked on how plants don't run on electricity or clock time, how none of nature did, how nature ran on sunlight and rain and the seasons, and how I was part of that system. My body was part of nature. I was related to bears, to dinosaurs, to plants, to things that were 1,000,000 years old. So what changes for her? Hadley. Do we hear from Maricela again? I don't believe that we hear from Maricela again, but I also think that every single time I have said that we don't hear from a character again, I haven't necessarily been right. So we do only have 2 chapters left. I think that we just have to infer what happens to Maricela and her baby. So you can choose to believe whatever you want, I guess. She realizes she's related to nature. Yes, she does. I believe that there's something kind of comforting about nature. That's why, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but maybe sometimes if you go out for a walk, if you're feeling grumpy or whatever, that can really help you just sort of reset. Is anyone on here? I guess Hadley. If anyone on here has read Talk Everlasting, that's a big part of Talk Everlasting. Like, life happens in cycles and circles, and that's kind of what Leona is getting at here. Like, no matter what happens, nature goes on, right? Like, we have all shut down for this coronavirus, but nature keeps going. So that can be comforting if you're feeling like lost in the hustle and the bustle like Maricela. Everything that's happening to her, even if she doesn't like it, is completely natural and normal. All right. Any other questions about today's reading? We have 2 chapters left, one for tomorrow and one for Friday. Hopefully by the end of the week, I will have my plan for what next week will look like pretty much ready. I'll try to share that with you in terms of when I'll be on Instagram. I'll still try to be on every day if I can. It might be a little bit shorter. I'm not really sure. I have to sort of figure out. The school is giving us more guidance about what the expectations for teachers are, and I need to sort of figure out how to work this around that or work it into that. So I will let you know as soon as I know. I still plan to be around on Instagram probably every day. And I'm aware that I owe you guys a couple quizzes. Those are on my to-do list for today. I will do Curtis and Nora today. I'll do Maricela tomorrow, hopefully. It's the plan. Sorry, friends, there's a lot going on. I showed you my planner. Yes, Abby, I have also gone for a lot of walks. And make sure you check out what's up on Classroom. And I will see you tomorrow at the regular time. Bye, friends.